Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee with Crainer for an exciting episode today with Roger Francis, the president of Sysco International Americas, which covers Canada, Latin America, the Caribbean, export, and much, much more. Sysco is a leader in Canadian food distribution and food wholesalers and a passionate business partner for customers in the food service industry. I imagine you see their trucks passing you by on the highway. There's a lot to this company, and Roger is leading the company in International Americas. So it's really a pleasure to have you on the show today to talk about business, talk about coffee, and much more. He was also the Chief Stores Officer at National Vision Incorporated and the former Divisional Vice President of CVS Health, and he's an alumnus of Wayne State University where he studied pharmacy. So we're going to be talking about a lot of exciting stuff, and I really hope you enjoy this. But the first question, Roger, every show, where in Windsor, Essex is your favorite place for coffee? Because I know you grew up here.
Yeah, I grew up, born and raised here in Linden. Thanks for having me on. One of the things that I'll tell you what, this Jamaica Me Crazy coffee that you brewed right now here before the show, that's fantastic. I'm really enjoying that. So
Courtesy of Costco.
Yeah, this may become one of my favorite cups of coffee, not only just for the cup of coffee, but for the interaction that goes on. Listen, when I think about my favorite places for coffee in Windsor, spending so much time in the States, every time we cross the border, there's something about you got to grab a Timmy's. Okay, yeah. You got to grab a Timmy's. So that's one of the things that we like to do. But when I'm really here with the family, there are two places that I really like to go, and one's down the street right here on Tecumseh. It's Lumberjack. Okay, it's Lumberjack, and the reason is because there's a lot of memories of the Lumberjack when my dad owned the bakery down the street on Tecumseh. We'd run over to Lumberjack, grab some breakfast. He'd sip on a coffee. We'd eat our breakfast. So there's a lot of memories associated with that. Plus, one of the owners, Jack, of the Lumberjack, has a great story of how he came into Canada and built it. So that's fascinating to me. It's more than just a cup. It's the experience. There's a new place too on Talbot near the outlet mall, Leonardo's. And anytime you can mix coffee and chocolate, that's a great recipe. It's a great environment. If you haven't been there, I'd encourage you to go there and take a taste test.
Okay, count me in. I won't say no. Now, you mentioned Jack from Lumberjack was an immigrant to Canada, built a business, and I believe your family is no different, right?
Yeah, my dad. Listen, my dad. Many of you know my two brothers and what they do and that stuff. My dad and my mom immigrated to Canada. My dad had $100 in his pocket and an 8th grade education, and like many immigrant parents in generations, sought out a better life. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They grinded it out to create opportunities for us to do what we have had the opportunity to do. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. And there's something to be said about this region. And about this country that allows and affords the opportunity for immigrants to come over and really reach their full potential.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And if you're a diehard Coffee with Crainer fan, you would know that I interviewed Roger's two brothers, the Francis family. All brothers were putting together the puzzle piece with Roger today. Fred Francis was on the show, and Eddie Francis. And now we have Roger here today.
Do you do surveys for like higher ratings afterwards?
Well,
is that how it works?
You're gonna have to beat the record. So
we're a very competitive bunch, but we compete for each other and not with each other, which is important.
Yes, no, exactly. How did you enter the food distribution industry? I know I mentioned there's a background in vision and health and pharmacy. What drew you to Cisco?
Yeah, well, listen, if you were to rewind the tapes and say to me or ask me the question, hey, Roger, would you ever see yourself, leading Cisco International Americas or being the president of Canada? I'd say, no, I never would have seen that in the cards, mm-hmm. right? But the thing that comes up is like life has a way of taking you on these journeys. And it's great when you open yourself up to opportunities around the journeys. Well, when you think about it at the core, my father was in food manufacturing and food distribution and pita bread. He did that. But really what really came to it is the relationships that were made along the way. Because you build up transferable skills around leadership and around people, around problem solving and competencies that are needed. And really what happened was leadership along the way, relationships along the way, just afforded me to have a phone call or receive a phone call that provided me this opportunity, and I took it.
So it was just a network over time that got you to here.
And that's exactly what it was. A network over time that got me here.
So with prior to this, you were at National Vision.
Yep.
And then CVS Health. Those obviously were critical roles to build your influence in business.
Yeah.
What's it been like at Cisco? I know it's been, is it a little over a year now?
Yeah, it's about 18 months.
How are those 18 months?
18 months have been fast-paced, exciting. Anytime you could take a look at the opportunities that exist, and if you're geared towards capitalizing on opportunities and growing, then it's invigorating. Anytime I have the opportunity to learn and apply that learning and deliver results, that's what's exciting to me.
And your role is very intense, I would imagine, compared to the other roles you've had. It's just, does it continue to get more intense, the different roles that you're taking on?
I think a factor of the intensity factor is a little bit about the role and a little bit about the wiring of the individual.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think there's a balance between there. Yeah, the role is intense. It's demanding at times, and you have to be able to balance it. But the individual wiring into how I operate, who I am, even my brothers, that's a variable that gets applied to the equation as well in terms of intensity.
Walk us through that. What is it like being president of Sysco International Americas? What's the day in the life of Roger?
It's a lot of calls. It's a lot of meetings. Okay, but it's not necessarily operating in the here and now. Okay, we're looking more out into the future, looking around the corners, around how do we continue to be focused on what the trends are happening in the market and anticipating consumer demand. That's what the majority of the time is spent as we look forward to it. And so there's a lot of strategy development. There's a lot of how does that strategy translate to tactical initiatives over a period of time. And there's also a lot of, when you have multiple responsibilities across different countries, you have countries that are in different levels of maturity. So it's like, how do you start to set up what's applicable for Canada versus Mexico versus the Bahamas or international export? So it's really kind of thinking through what are the strategic initiatives that are developed based off of the customer needs, and then how do you layer on tactical steps or initiatives that will help you deliver that strategy.
And now looking back the 18 months that you've been here, what's been the most eye-opening to you, if you had to think?
That's a great question. If I take a look at the last 18 months, and one of the things that I'm extremely pleased with, okay, because you come in and you do a quick SWOT assessment around what it is. Here's the one thing that I love about the role and the team specifically. The team, you get into an organization this size, and you could easily get to the point where silos are built up. And as leaders, the most important thing is to break down silos between departments so that you could be nimble and you could be agile and you can make things happen again for the customer. One of the things I'm pleasantly surprised with is that, culturally, the organization is hey, what do we need to do? How do we roll up our sleeves and how do we get it done? So the silos are really non-existent across functions and across regional operations. And that affords us the opportunity of going quickly to market with what we need to.
And in your portfolio, how many people are you overseeing?
In the Canadian business, there's approximately 7,000 colleagues.
Wow.
Just in the Canadian business. Canadian business, we have 17 different locations across the country, from coast to coast, from BC all the way out to the Rock, right? We have 17 different locations and everything in between. And we have about 7,000 colleagues within the network, within the Cisco family.
That's a lot of oversight, but like you said, you're not in the day-to-day operations. It's more of 5, 10.
Well, you trust yourself to build a team that has the capabilities of leading the day-to-day and leading these colleagues through what needs to be done. And in our business, listen, while you spend your time up looking out, you also have to be able to swoop in and get low at times. So while my time is spent maybe looking out a few years, my most enjoyable points of my job is actually when I get to travel the different sites and spend time with the colleagues and spend time in operations, spend time with our sales colleagues and with our customers. One of the things I love doing is sitting down with the customer around the table and saying, hey, what's going on? What can we do to help? And because at the end of the day, we cannot lose sight of, let me put it this way, we can't look inside out. We need to always look outside in. We have to be able to be a customer-centric organization that looks to gather input and feedback from the customers and challenge ourselves to do better, to meet their needs, not only for today, but for tomorrow.
Well said.
Thank you.
Now, I mentioned a little bit about what Cisco does, but for those who are not a customer, haven't had to use your services, could you just share a little bit about, I guess, things behind the scenes that people don't realize Cisco helped do this, just in their everyday life?
Yeah. So when you think about Cisco or when you see the trucks on the road, many people will think about Cisco as, okay, you're delivering groceries to the restaurants. Well, there's more than just to the restaurants. You know, healthcare is a major customer of ours. So when you're thinking about the hospital systems and the healthcare network, a major customer of Cisco, right? If you take a look at education, that's a major piece. When you take a look at camps, whether it's forestry, major customer for Cisco. So the reach is further than just your full service restaurants or your quick service restaurants. It goes deeper into the communities. And our team is not only a supply chain operations team with their drivers and our warehouse colleagues, there's also a robust sales team that are embedded in the communities that they work and live. I'll tell you this is my home community. One of the things, my first tours was, when I started, was to spend time with this sales team in my home community. And, growing up, going to high school at Holy Names, you get a lot of friends that have, family that own restaurants. And when I was sitting at dinner with the team, and I'm hearing the colleagues on the sales team talking and sharing stories about their customers that I know, that I grew up with, and there wasn't any differentiation between how well they knew them, tells me that, that's the most important thing, because they know them just as well as I knew them growing up. So the sales force embedding in the local communities, being able to really listen to what the customers need and to provide that, is invigorating to me. And then on the other backside of things, we have built out a culinary force that helps our local operators tap into menu creations, way of thinking through saving on costs, to menu innovation and or product service delivery. That's all done behind the scenes.
And I want to pick a piece of what you said, and you've been saying it a few times, your colleagues.
Yes.
You don't say your employees.
No.
Why?
When you think about it, you view it as everyone has, it's not a top-down type of piece, like these are my employees. I don't view it that way.
Yeah.
They're all colleagues, and here's the thing that comes into it. You get to a certain point in your life, okay, where you wake up every day and you think about, what am I doing? Okay, and why am I doing it? One of the things, whether it was with National Vision, whether it was with CVS Health, and what I've learned along the way now, even with Cisco, is the importance of purpose. Purpose matters. You could go to work, punch a clock, do whatever you have to do. And our purpose at Cisco is to connect the world to share food and care for one another. Connect the world to share food and care for one another. And like I shared with you, where's your favorite place for coffee? I remember the moments where I went to the Lumberjack with my dad, and it wasn't about necessarily just the coffee. It was about the experience. So when I think about the important things and why I say colleagues, because my colleagues and I are bringing our purpose to life.
Yeah.
It's not one individual. It's every single individual that's making that happen.
Yeah, I really a lot of respect for that, because you see in these massive organizations where there's a president. You said 7,000 people that you're overseeing technically, but I really commend you for taking that approach. I think more organizations need to take that approach, right? Not a top down but bottom up.
Yeah, and you know, at times it's a meet in the middle, okay, but it really comes down to where's the focus, and never losing sight of how important two things are important. One is what's your guiding light, if you will, from a purpose perspective, and then two, how do you make sure the customer is always in the room? Because you can't read your own press clippings. You got to be able to always think about how you can make it better for the customers and your colleagues.
And let's dive into this a bit deeper. What would you say your leadership style is at Cisco? Obviously, everyone's on the same line. Everyone's working together. But you can go into that a little bit further. When you first entered the organization, what was the flair you wanted to add at Cisco?
Well, listen, I think your leadership style evolves over time, and it evolves through a series of mistakes. You learn, okay? You know, I tell my boys, I got two boys, Preston's 17, Pierce is soon to be 18. And when you think about it, the thing that I tell them is, you know, the word failed means first attempt in learning. So I think
Never heard that before.
what happens is your leadership style evolves based off of your experiences, your competencies develop, and in your mistakes. Here's my leadership style. It's inclusive in nature, okay? Maybe that's because I'm the middle child. I'm always kind of like saying, Eddie, what are you doing? And Freddie, what are you doing? And how do we pull it all together? Maybe there's a little bit of that coming into play here.
Yeah.
But it's inclusive in nature. And I like to leverage the strengths of individuals in the building of a team. At times there's leaders that will focus in on, hey, we need to work on this, you need to work on this, if we focus and harness our time and spend our time on the strengths coming together versus the areas of developmental opportunities, you could probably get more, okay? The other thing that comes into it that I'll say as it relates to inclusivity is, I'll tell my team this all the time, you have a seat at the table. But with that seat comes the responsibility of leveraging your voice. Don't give up your seat because you're not leveraging your voice. If you have something to say it, because the overall team would benefit from it. And I think those are two key pieces around how I choose to lead my team, and really kind of make sure that we're focusing in on what we need to. The other piece is you cannot afford. You can't afford not to have fun. You gotta be able to have fun. And while I take my job very, very seriously, I don't always take myself seriously, because I think people have to be able to relate to their leaders, and be able to form that relationship.
How do you have fun at Cisco?
Oh, you know what? Listen, fun happens every single day. We have, even just whether it's on a conference call and just talking about, hey, what's going on, or what happened in someone's personal life, or tell a funny story. It's like, those are the things that you just can't miss the opportunities of connecting with your team.
It's really a second family. I mean, you spend more time at work than you do at home.
You know what? I remember the days where people would say, keep your work at work and keep your family, your personal life at personal life. And I don't think I don't think you could do that.
Yeah.
I think there's a blending of things that have to happen, and you just got to accept that people are gonna, there's gonna be times where your work follows you home, and there's gonna be time where your family follows you to work. And so, being accepting of that and understanding of that is important to lead a team that size. Mm-hmm. So you got to, like I said, a different way. You just got to be real. You got to be comfortable in who you are and how you lead.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. In my work, being a mortgage agent here, I'm here long hours of the day, right? And you want to feel accepted. You want it to be an open environment for you, right? Where you can talk about things that happened at home.
Yep.
Not have to hide that and try to bubble it up while you're at work. Because that just leads to someone crashing and burning, right?
Yeah, you can't do that. You have to be able to balance it.
Yeah. 2 more questions for you, and then I'll let you off the hook because you're a very busy man. Looking ahead, what are you seeing at Cisco? Like, what are you excited for 5-10 years from now? Where would you like Cisco to be?
Listen, I think that as you take a look at it, the industry is still very, very exciting. There's a lot of opportunities for continued growth across the Canadian landscape. If I think through it, there are obviously challenges that are ahead, like any industry will have. Mm-hmm. And the key that I think through is, you think about, inflation, you think about labor costs going up, and I'm really thinking about from an operator perspective. Okay, operators, local operators, the mom and pop shops, if you will, as well as the bigger restaurants, are under pressure when you think about the economic situations that could be happening in the next few years. Yeah. I think the most important thing that Cisco has to do, we have to do, is we have to position ourselves with our partners. I say partners not only from a customer perspective, but from a vendor perspective and from a colleague perspective, to be able to anticipate and solution for problems ahead of time. Okay, so we have to be able to put ourselves in the customer's shoes, put ourselves at the table with the customers, ask them, what do you anticipate in your business? And then we should go back and find solutions that'll help make them more successful. Because at the end of the day, when we make our partners and our customers more successful, we're able to deliver that purpose of connecting the world to share food and care for one another.
Yes.
Okay. That's what makes me excited each and every single day, is how do we help them? And
like, I'm just thinking from, a mom and pop shop that's working with Cisco. The last thing they want to be hit with is the cost to get the goods and services that they provide to their shop.
Yeah.
It's a critical piece, and it's something that could throw off the complete game. And like you said, predicting what's to come, like if there was a way to know a pandemic was going to hit. But now everyone's ready for the next one, right?
Yeah, and listen, the challenges that are thrown at us from generation to generation, year to year, will make us more resilient, and it makes the industry more resilient. Mm-hmm. This industry is resilient. The key that we have to understand is, how do we? I'm big on this partnership type of framework, because it's not just partnering with our own internal resources. It's partnering with community resources. It's partnering with federal resources. It's partnering with provincial resources.
Yeah.
Okay. To really make sure that we're thinking and we're telling the story that needs to be told to be able to ensure growth for the future.
Well said. And now my final question, it's one I'm starting to ask regularly on every show. If you could look at a young person wanting to be in your role one day, or a young Roger Francis walk through the door, what would be some advice you would share with that person?
I'll tell you the same advice I tell my boys. There's no difference. Okay? I say to the boys all the time, I'm like, first things first. Don't be afraid of taking chances. Like, my career evolved over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Okay, I went from one industry to another industry to another industry. Okay, and I think back to my parents' generation that had to immigrate over. They took chances. So I would say this: don't be afraid of taking chances. Again, because the first piece of definition of failure is first attempt in learning. So I think that you have to be able to bet on yourself at times and be confident with that. Okay. The other thing is, as you take chances, okay, the thing that I would say is you have to be able to, and this is what I had to learn quickly. It was 19 years with CVS. So I was pretty much institutional. I knew everything.
Yeah.
I knew how the building blocks were stacked, if you will. The key is you have to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. What did you learn? What do you now need to unlearn? But then how do you reapply it in the new business? So I think that's an important piece that comes into it. So every opportunity, anytime the door has even had a crack open into it, I'm blessed because it's not just me. You know, my wife Tiffany, of 19 years, we've been married 19 years, and we've moved 10 times for opportunities. So as you think about it, those are the three things that I would say is one, don't be afraid of stepping into the door if it's cracked open as an opportunity. Think about what have I learned, what can I unlearn, and what do I relearn in the process. And the third piece is every time you try something different, you're learning something new, and don't be afraid of that.
Completely agree. That's how I felt like going into the mortgage business, knew nothing about it. And I took the step forward, realized I could make $0 or I could make as much as I wanted, right? Yeah. That initial jump is scary.
It's scary. It's very scary, especially if you've been there for a while. And many people don't make that, and that's cool too. But one of the things that I'll tell you, I'll never forget, you know, if I could go back in time and say, what would you tell your younger self?
Yep.
I remember when I graduated pharmacy school, and you know, Eddie checked I was on the 18th hole at Kingsville, and Eddie, I had him check the website to see if I got licensed. He's like, "Congratulations, you're licensed." And I remember standing there with a couple of my high school buddies and saying to myself, "You're done learning. School's done. You're done learning."
So you thought.
And I look back, if I was to go back in time and stand on that 18th green, I'd say, you're never done learning until you're done. So that's the piece that comes in every single day is like, what can I learn more that makes me better tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's my approach.
And I graduated last year, and that's how I felt. I'm like, okay, no
Done.
more school.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, great, I have to write a course for my mortgage license, right? But it keeps you energized, and it builds you as an individual. It builds your leadership abilities and just your mental capacity. It keeps you young.
Yeah.
Right?
And the thing that I would say is, you got to be a student of the business, a constant student of the business, and you got to be a student of life. And that's the stuff that just happens every single day. Is what am I gonna learn in the business, and what am I gonna learn in life that I'm gonna be able to apply tomorrow, and more importantly, how can I pass that along to the next generation?
And you just did.
Okay,
I learned a ton, and I hope you did. Watching, be sure to check out coffeewithcrainer.com. If you missed this episode, want to watch it all over again, or if you want to check out the past Francis episodes, we have Eddie, Fred, and Roger, the Francis trifecta on the show today. Roger, it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thanks to those watching. We'll see you soon.